Speaking of which, teams from Florida, game outfit. Game 7 in Boston. After the Celtics erased a 3-0 hole, which the Heat put them in, they had an opportunity to become the first ever NBA team to come all the way back. The Heat, though, had been great on the road throughout this playoff run, and the Celtics had been very ordinary at home to this point. Game 7 in Boston. What's at stake? Heat looking to become the second 8 seed to get to the finals. Of course, you know what Boston had on the table, the opportunity to come roaring all the way back. Early on, this is bad news for Boston. Jason Tatum, watch that left ankle. It rolls, and that hurts. And it was an impact that appeared to be a game-long impact. A miserable first quarter at home for Boston. Jimmy Butler turns defense to offense. The Heat within 1. Now the Heat are leading, and Butler gets the bucket there. An 18-6 run by Miami ends the first quarter. Boston was 0 of 10 from 3 in the first. Heat up a dozen. Again, defense turns to offense. Caleb Martin, this guy came up huge for the Heat. Big-time 3. And here it's Tatum out on the run. But again, you see wincing throughout. That ankle was a factor. So were the Heat. Jimmy, Butler, give me all 3 of these. The Heat, 8 of 16 from 3 in the first half. The Celtics, just 4 of 21. Poor three-point shooting plagued them throughout this series. Third quarter, you see the Heat. 41 straight playoff wins when they led by double digits at the half. But Derek White, who is the only reason this series is still going after that remarkable putback in Game 6 in Miami, gets the Celtics within single digits. Now here it's Tatum with a wind-up 3. That was a big one. That came after a 3 on the other end and keeps the Celtics within 10. Butler, step back, puts the Heat back up 10 again. It's 7. Martin, again. That is cash. He was spectacular, going for 26 in this one. There he goes again. Baseline. Celtics are looking for a travel, a double dribble, something. Nothing. Heat carrying a 10-point lead into the fourth. Up 10. There's that man again. Landing another punch. Heat up 13. Few possessions later, and as time begins to evaporate and this lead begins to grow, it's looking more and more like the Heat are going to go into Boston and win Game 7. Butler goes for 28 in this one. Jaylen Brown, 8 turnovers, the most by a Celtic player in a playoff game since Larry Legend in 81. Good find. Adebayo, backdoor Duncan Robinson. And Duncan asking for the Boston crowd to let him hear it. There's nothing to say. This is going to be a Heat victory. Spo basically called it. Saturday night said, we wish we could play right now. Was he just protecting his team? Was he projecting what he really believed? Whatever the case may be, the Miami Heat go on the road into Boston and win Game 7. They were a 7-point dog. It's their 9th win this postseason as an outright underdog, tied for the most by far, as far back as we've got any data on this. The 2020 Heat also won 9 games as a dog, but lost in the finals to the Lakers. But that was the bubble. It was a completely different scenario. I would basically just toss that. It has nothing to do with what they did this year. Kendrick Perkins joins us now here live on SportsCenter just past 11 o'clock East Coast time as Miami goes on the road and wins Game 7. Perk, 22-15, the Heat had the lead after the first quarter. The Celtics 0 of 10 from 3 in the first. How much did that first 12 minutes allow Miami to play from a position of confidence?
Oh, it was everything, Scott. And I think back, if we go back and look at Game 5, right, the Celtics jumped out and they had a 35-20 point quarter, first quarter on the Miami Heat. And when you're going on the road in Game 7, the whole mindset is don't let the crowd get into it. And when you look at the Game 5, and I keep going back to it, third, fourth, the second, third, and fourth quarter, it was pretty much even. So the Heat is saying, you know what? We already done won Game 1 and Game 2. Yeah, Game 5, we had a slippage in the first quarter, but let's go into Game 7. Let's not let the crowd get into it, and let's continue to attack, but stay right there and keep our foot on the gas, and that's exactly what happened.
Roz just asked Jimmy about it. I ask you, Kendrick, about it. Caleb Martin, how much value did he provide the Miami Heat in this game?
You know, he was the second best player in this series on the Miami Heat. Bam struggled offensively, but every time they needed a big bucket, he was there to deliver. And it wasn't just off a catch and shoot. It was him creating his own shot, getting downhill, getting buckets when need be, taking some of that slack off of Jimmy Butler. But, Scott, let me ask you this for a second. Can we give a ton of credit to Eric Spoelstra?
No question.
Because out of all his coaching years, since he's been a head coach, he has never won Coach of the Year, and that is disturbing to me. This guy has put all these guys, including Caleb Martin, in position to be successful. You look at Duncan Robinson, you look at Gabe Vincent and Max Strus. That is coaching, Scott. When you look at the zone that he put out there tonight, that is coaching, man, and it's a beautiful thing to see.
Perk, and that coaching started right after Game 6 ended when he went right up to that podium and he said, we want to play right now. And I said it during the highlight. Was he protecting his guys or was he projecting what he really believed? I think it's a little bit of both. And I want to ask you, Perk, about this. Look, and we're in on this, you, me, and everybody at our network and every other network. The Celtics lose the first three and they're garbage and they're bums. And then they win the next three and the Heat, well, it's been a nice ride, but there's no way they're going into Boston and winning Game 7. How much does all of that weigh? These guys are human beings, right? Miami hears it. They get fueled by it. Maybe Boston feels the pressure. You've lived both sides of it. How much of that is on the minds and the shoulders of players in games like this?
Oh, it's huge. And it's also on the leadership of the locker room. And, Scott, we talked about Eric Spoelstra, but you talk about a guy like Udonis Haslem, who a lot of people out there are wondering why is he still on the bench. It's because he's an extension of the head coach. He's a guy that could keep the locker room together. He's a guy that has won 3 NBA championships for that organization to able to keep those young guys head levels and say, you know what, forget that Derek White had a tip in Game 6. Let's go on the road. Let's refocus and retool, get on this plane, and go into Boston and get Game 7.
Which is exactly what Spo said they were going to do, and it is exactly what they did.
Shot 21% from 3. Defense was still there.
Is this team too reliant on the three-point shot? Does that have to change?
No.
Joe, how did the game plan have to adjust to navigate perhaps any limitations Jason had?
Nothing. I mean, I thought he just tried to play through it as best as he could.
And how do you, obviously just with it ending right now, look back on this season? How do you assess the season this team had?
It's one of the best locker rooms I've been a part of. The guys cared. They gave it everything they had. It's the most important thing to take from this. Obviously, we didn't achieve our goal. We didn't win, which was our goal. So we failed in that regard. But it's not because the guys didn't have a sense of togetherness, character, and just who they are as people.
Joe, to your left. Game 6, you guys shot 20% from 3, but found a way to win. What was missing today to overcome that, where your favorite part of the offense, the one you rely on, didn't pull through?
Yeah, I thought they made shots. We weren't as efficient in transition. Just thought we just didn't play well. That just didn't play well. Yeah.
And I know just fresh off going to the locker room, talking to the guys, but what's the message to them if you talk to them at all after?
Like I said, just I love them, and they need to know. When we were down 3-0, the thing was, how do we want to be defined? And I thought they showed a lot of character by even getting to this point.
Joe, obviously, in a situation like this, there's a tendency to kind of look back at missed opportunities. Do you look back at maybe a Game 2, and do you look back with any regret at some of the things you could have done to win earlier, rather than put yourself in this situation?
No.
Oh.
There you go. Outscored by 15 from the three-point line. Boston was 9 of 42 from 3. That was a 21% in a Game 7 loss at home. Perk, this Boston team has got a couple of superstars, as we know, in Tatum and Brown. Brown had a rough night in terms of turnovers. Tatum gets injured, but no one's going to care about that in the offseason when everyone looks at this Celtic team as constructed and says, does this work? You're shaking your head no. What do they do?
You know why, Scott? Because let me explain something to you why I'm shaking my head.
Okay.
I come on this network and I love working with you and the rest of our colleagues, and I give my unbiased opinion, and I come on here and speak the truth. And you know, certain Celtic fans had the audacity to try to revoke my Celtic card because I've been coming on here telling them how sloppy the Celtics play on both ends of the floor and how they lost their identity. Now, to answer your question, it's time to break Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum up. Jaylen Brown was horrible tonight. 8 turnovers, 8 for 23 from the field. Jason Tatum hurt. This is the time that he's supposed to step up. And I just don't know if you're the front office of the Celtics, how much longer you're going to be patient with this duo. And it's going to be guys out there that are going to be somewhat on the market, like a Trae Young and a Damian Lillard. And I think the front office, Brad Stevens and Whit Grousbeck, is going to have to take a hard look at whether or not they want to bring Jaylen Brown back and pair him up with Jason Tatum, which I think they should. And I think they should go out there and try to get a Damian Lillard. And if they fall short of getting him, then go get a Trae Young. But I think it's time to end this relationship right now.
Real quick, Leg said Denver beats whoever comes out of the East, and that was not disrespect to either the Celtics or the Heat. It was just his belief in Denver. What's your sense of what the finals look like, Perk?
Well, first, let me give you your props, Scott, because I believe you were the only one that actually had faith in the Denver Nuggets winning the Western Conference. I watch you every night. And I'm going to say this. I have Denver beating the Miami Heat. They are really, really good. Jokic is the best player in the league. I will say that right now. But I would not disrespect the Heat and say they would get swept or it will end at 5. I believe this series will go 6 or 7. I believe Eric Spoelstra will put a game plan together. And again, the Heat have made it this far for a reason. They beat the Milwaukee Bucks, and they just knocked off the Boston Celtics, two of the teams that had the best rosters in the league and the best records in the league. So I won't disrespect them to that point, but Legs is right. The Denver Nuggets should be the favorite, and I'm predicting them to bring home a championship this season.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming, sports, and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.